TLC cameras will never show you the moment producers allegedly had to physically separate Matt Roloff and Chris Marek during a vicious off-camera screaming match that shook the very foundations of Roloff Farms. While the show presents a narrative of awkward tension and forced family gatherings, sources from within the production crew have begun to leak details of a confrontation so volatile that security reportedly had to intervene. The trigger for this explosive event wasn't about pumpkins or property lines or even the wedding. It was about a catastrophic, secret $250,000 debt that Matt is now legally weaponizing to blackmail Amy's new husband. We are looking at a situation that goes far beyond reality TV drama. This is financial warfare. The reports coming out of Hillsborough suggest that Matt isn't just angry about the money. He is using it as a golden handcuff situation to exert dominance over the one man who thought he had finally earned a place at the table. This is the story of a handshake deal gone wrong, a luxury project that turned into a money pit, and a husband who is now drowning in a $250,000 hole with nowhere to turn but his worst enemy. Before we expose the financial receipts, the leaked timelines, and the sinister ultimatum Matt has handed down to Chris, I need you to do something for me right now. If you want to stay ahead of the edit and know what is really happening behind the gates of Roloff Farms, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are digging up the dirt that the network is terrified to air, and you do not want to miss the updates coming next week. Go ahead, click subscribe, and let's get into the nightmare scenario facing Amy and Chris. To understand how Chris Marek, a seasoned real estate agent who usually prides himself on caution and due diligence, walked right into this trap, we have to look at the timeline of the last 18 months. According to insider reports and whispers circulating through the Oregon business community, Chris approached Matt with a business proposition that was supposed to bridge the gap between the two families. Chris has watched Matt turn the farm into a monetization machine for decades. He saw the potential not just in pumpkins, but in the booming agritourism market. The theory is that Chris pitched Matt on an exclusive, high-end luxury glamping destination situated on the perimeter of the Roloff property, land that is technically under Matt's control, but has been sitting dormant. The idea was solid. It was meant to be a joint venture where Chris would handle the logistics and the build, and Matt would provide the land and the initial capital. It was supposed to be Chris's way of buying into the legacy, of proving that he wasn't just Amy's husband, but a businessman who could stand toe-to-toe with Matt Roloff. Matt, playing the role of the benevolent patriarch, reportedly agreed. But here is where the trap was set. Instead of going through the banks, where interest rates are sky-high and paperwork takes months, insiders suggest that Matt offered to float the construction loan himself. A cool $250,000 transferred directly to Chris's LLC to break ground immediately. It seemed like a gesture of goodwill, a sign that the hatchet was finally buried. Chris took the bait. He didn't see that by accepting a private loan from Matt Roloff, he was bypassing the safety net of institutional lending and stepping directly into a spider's web. There were no bank regulators to check the contractor's background. There were no third-party inspectors to verify the draw schedule. It was just Matt, Chris, and a promissory note that likely contained clauses Chris didn't read closely enough. The project, which we are calling the Northwoods Glamping Initiative, was doomed from the start. Chris, eager to impress Matt and get the project moving before the rainy season, hired a general contractor who was recommended by a friend of a friend, a decision that would prove fatal to his bank account. We are hearing reports that this contractor was not licensed for the specific type of eco-structures Chris wanted to build. The plan involved imported yurts, sustainable sewage systems, and high-tech off-grid power solutions. It was ambitious, expensive, and required a level of expertise that this discount contractor simply did not possess. For the first 3 months, everything looked fine on paper. Chris was sending Matt update photos, the ground was cleared, and materials were arriving. But then, the silence started. The contractor began missing milestones. Materials meant for the luxury cabins allegedly vanished from the site overnight. Then came the excuses: supply chain issues, labor shortages, permit delays. Chris, trying to shield Amy from the stress and not wanting to look incompetent in front of Matt, reportedly started dipping into his own reserves to keep things moving, hoping to catch up before Matt noticed the timeline slipping. He was robbing Peter to pay Paul, but in this case, Paul was a contractor who was already halfway out the door. The tipping point came when the contractor effectively ghosted the project, leaving behind half-finished foundations that were not up to code and a pile of invoices that had ostensibly been paid, but for work that was never completed. The $250,000 wasn't just spent, it was incinerated. Chris was left with a muddy field of scrap metal and a massive liability. When he finally realized the extent of the disaster, the panic set in. This wasn't just a failed business venture, this was Matt Roloff's money, and Matt Roloff does not lose money. Sources say Chris tried to keep the magnitude of the loss from Amy, knowing how protective she is of their finances after the divorce settlement. He thought he could fix it. He thought he could find another crew, salvage the materials, and maybe get a bank loan to pay Matt back before the term of their handshake deal was up. But you cannot hide a $250,000 disaster in a small town like Hillsborough. Matt, who has eyes and ears everywhere on that property, noticed the lack of progress. He noticed the silence. And unlike a bank, which might offer a forbearance plan or a restructuring of debt, Matt saw an opening. He didn't immediately demand the money. He waited. He watched Chris squirm. He let the anxiety build, knowing that every day the interest, social and financial, was compounding. This brings us back to that explosive, unaired confrontation. It is believed that Matt finally confronted Chris not in a boardroom, but out near the mule barn, away from the cameras, or so he thought. Witnesses describe Matt producing a ledger, a detailed accounting of every dime he had fronted, and asking Chris simply, "Where is my resort?" When Chris tried to explain the contractor situation, trying to frame it as a temporary setback, Matt allegedly cut him off with a ruthlessness that sent chills down the spines of the crew members within earshot. He didn't care about the contractor. He didn't care about the yurts. He looked Chris in the eye and reportedly said, "I don't have a contract with a builder. I have a contract with you." The screaming match that ensued was the sound of a man realizing his life was about to implode. Chris, usually the calm diplomat, was backed into a corner, shouting about unforeseen circumstances and betrayal. Matt, on the other hand, was reportedly icy calm, raising his voice only to deliver the final blow regarding the deadline. This is the setup for the psychological torture that is currently unfolding. The luxury glamping dream is dead, buried under Oregon mud, but the debt is very much alive. And now we have to look at why Matt would lend such a massive amount of money to his ex-wife's new husband in the first place. Was it really an investment? Or was it a calculated gamble to purchase leverage over the one thing Amy values most, her independence? As we peel back the layers of this financial disaster, it becomes clear that this isn't just about bad business. It is about power. Matt knows that $250,000 is a life-altering sum of money. It is enough to drain retirement accounts. It is enough to force the sale of assets. It is enough to cause a divorce. By holding this note over Chris's head, Matt has effectively inserted himself into the middle of Amy's marriage. Every dinner conversation Chris and Amy have is now shadowed by this debt. Every vacation they plan is tainted by the knowledge that they owe Matt. The glamping project was never the endgame for Matt. The endgame was owning the man who sleeps next to his ex-wife. Now let's go deeper into the specific mechanics of how this debt is structured, because the devil is truly in the details. Insider theory suggests that the promissory note includes a balloon payment clause, a nasty financial instrument where the entire balance becomes due at once if certain conditions aren't met. With the project abandoned, those conditions have been breached. Matt technically has the legal right to foreclose on whatever collateral Chris put up. And this is where the story gets truly terrifying for Amy. What did Chris put up as collateral? Did he pledge his own real estate listings, his commission checks, or, in a moment of desperate overconfidence, did he pledge assets that are co-mingled with Amy's? If Matt decides to call in the loan, he might not just be coming for Chris's bank account, he could be coming for the life Amy has built post-divorce. The tension on the farm is palpable. Production sources say that Amy has been kept in the dark about the severity of the situation until very recently. She knew there were delays, but she didn't know the money was gone. Imagine the moment she finds out that her husband owes her ex-husband $250,000 for a project that doesn't exist. This is the wedge Matt has been waiting for. It validates every negative thing he has ever implied about Chris not being farm tough or business savvy. It allows Matt to look at Amy with that pitying expression and say, "I tried to help him." It is the ultimate gaslighting maneuver. He creates the trap, hands Chris the rope, and then stands back and acts surprised when Chris hangs himself with it. But if you think the loss of the money is the worst part of this story, you are underestimating Matt Roloff. The financial loss is just the entry wound. The infection is what kills you. This brings us to the twist that changes everything we thought we knew about the dynamic between these two men. Up until this point, the narrative has been that Matt was a supportive friend who got burned by a bad investment. But new information suggests that Matt isn't acting like a concerned friend who wants his money back. He is acting like a ruthless chess master who has finally trapped the opponent's king. We are seeing a shift in Matt's behavior that is both chilling and calculated. Instead of sitting down with Chris to work out a payment plan or a way to salvage the project, sources claim Matt has launched a campaign of psychological warfare designed to break Chris Merrick's spirit. The twist lies in the realization that Matt Roloff does not actually need that $250,000. We have covered Matt's net worth extensively on this channel. Between the farm revenue, the show salary, and his other investments, $250,000 is painful, yes, but it isn't life-threatening for him. For Chris, however, it is an anchor around his neck. Matt knows this. And the prevailing theory among insiders is that Matt is deliberately delaying any resolution to maximize the pain. He isn't rushing to court. He isn't demanding an immediate wire transfer. Instead, he is engaging in what can only be described as a slow-motion torture of uncertainty. Witnesses have reported seeing Matt showing up unannounced at locations where Chris is working, purportedly to check in, but in reality to remind Chris of his presence. Imagine the anxiety of seeing your creditor, the man who holds your financial future in his hands, rolling up in his mule or his truck while you are trying to conduct your own business. It is a power move. Matt will reportedly ask innocent questions in front of other people. Things like, "How is the cash flow?" Or, "Any news on that big project of ours?" He drops these subtle bombs to keep Chris in a state of perpetual panic, terrified that Matt will spill the secret of the debt to the wrong person, or worse, to Amy before Chris is ready to tell her the full truth. This is where the situation transforms from a business dispute into a domestic thriller. Matt has allegedly hit Chris with an aggressive, final warning, but it wasn't delivered in a standard legal letter. Rumors suggest Matt delivered the message verbally, perhaps during one of those tense off-camera moments near the pumpkin patch. The ultimatum was reportedly simple and brutal. Fix this mess within 30 days, or Matt will take alternative measures to recover his assets. The vague nature of that threat is what makes it so terrifying. Does alternative measures mean a lawsuit? Does it mean going to the press? Does it mean seizing personal property? The ambiguity is the weapon. Matt is letting Chris's imagination do the work for him, forcing Chris to lose sleep, wondering exactly how Matt plans to destroy him. We have to consider the chilling theory that Matt Roloff deliberately allowed the project to fail. Think about it. Matt has been in the construction and landscaping game for 40 years. He knows every contractor in Oregon. He knows the soil conditions on the farm better than anyone. Is it possible that when Chris presented the glamping plan, Matt saw the flaws immediately? Is it possible he knew the budget was unrealistic and the contractor was shady, but he signed the check anyway? If Matt wanted the project to succeed, he would have insisted on managing it himself. He would have used his own crews. By handing Chris the money and stepping back, Matt effectively handed a loaded gun to a man who didn't know how to use it. He watched Chris hire the wrong people. He watched the timeline slip. He watched the disaster unfold and did nothing to stop it. Because a successful glamping resort would only give Chris independence. A failed project accompanied by a massive debt gives Matt control. This brings us to the deep strain this is placing on the marriage. Amy Roloff fought for years to escape the shadow of Matt's control. She endured the chaotic renovations, the steamrolling decisions, and the feeling of being a guest in her own life. When she married Chris, she thought she was marrying a partner, an equal, someone safe. But now, Matt has found a way to invade that sanctuary. Even without Amy knowing the full dollar amount, she can feel the tension. She sees the stress on Chris's face. She notices that he is distracted, irritable, and constantly checking his phone. The debt is a ghost haunting their home. Every time Chris looks at Amy, he has to hide the fact that he has jeopardized their security. Every time they interact with Matt for the show or family events, Chris has to play nice with the man who is holding a metaphorical knife to his throat. Matt is effectively using this debt to drive a wedge between the newlyweds. He is banking on the fact that financial secrets are the #1 killer of marriages. If Chris confesses, Amy will be furious at his recklessness. If he doesn't confess and Matt exposes him, Amy will be furious at the betrayal of trust. It is a lose-lose situation for Chris and a win-win for Matt. If the marriage crumbles, Matt gets to be the stable one, the one who was right all along. If the marriage survives, it survives with Chris permanently humbled, stripped of his confidence, and forever indebted to the ex-husband. Let's look at the final warning document that has supposedly been drafted by Matt's legal team. While not yet filed in court, leaks suggest this document is sitting on a desk in Hillsborough, ready to be deployed. It allegedly outlines a repayment schedule that is mathematically impossible for Chris to meet without liquidating significant personal assets. We are talking about strict deadlines, exorbitant penalty fees, and a clause that allows Matt to place a lien on Chris's real estate commission earnings. This is designed to bleed him dry. It is not a repayment plan. It is an eviction notice from his own life. The psychological warfare extends to the farm itself. The proposed site of the glamping resort, now a muddy eyesore, stands as a physical monument to Chris's failure. Matt has reportedly refused to clean it up. He leaves the half-finished foundations and the piles of debris right where they are. Why? Because every time Chris drives onto the property to film or visit, he has to drive past it. He has to look at his mistake. It is a daily humiliation. Matt could have that site cleared in an afternoon with his heavy machinery. Leaving it there is a choice. It is a message. It says, "You tried to build on my land, and look what happened." We also need to talk about the timing. This creates a perfect storm of drama just as the show needs a new storyline. There is a cynical but plausible theory that Matt is timing this escalation to coincide with contract negotiations for the next season. He knows that a feud over $250,000 is rated gold. He is turning real-life financial ruin into content. Chris Merrick, who prefers a low profile, is being dragged into a high-stakes storyline he never signed up for. He is being cast as the villain, the squandered, the incompetent businessman, while Matt positions himself as the victim of a bad loan. The narrative is being rewritten in real time, and Chris doesn't have the producer credits to fight back. The pressure is mounting. We are hearing that Chris has been seeking private legal counsel, trying to find a loophole in the promissory note. He is looking for a way out that doesn't involve writing a check he can't cash. But Matt's contracts are notoriously tight. He has learned from decades of business dealings and a high-profile divorce. The loophole Chris is looking for likely doesn't exist. He is trapped in a box that Matt built, and the walls are closing in. As we move toward the climax of this situation, you have to ask yourself, what does Matt actually want? If he doesn't need the money and he has already humiliated Chris, what is the ultimate goal? Why keep the pressure on? The answer lies in the one thing Matt has always wanted, the one thing he has never been able to fully secure since the divorce: total, absolute, uncontested control of the legacy. The debt is just a tool. The money is just a lever. Matt is preparing to make an offer that will solve Chris's problem instantly, but at a cost that will tear Amy's heart out. He is going to pivot. The aggression will suddenly vanish, replaced by a calm, reasonable solution. He will offer to wipe the slate clean. He will offer to forgive the $250,000, to tear up the promissory note, and to never speak of the glamping disaster again. But in exchange, He wants something that money can't buy. He is setting the stage for the ultimate trade. He knows Chris is desperate. He knows Chris wants to save his marriage and his reputation. He knows Chris will agree to almost anything to make this go away. And that is when Matt will reveal his true hand. He isn't hunting for cash. He is hunting for rights. He is hunting for the final severing of ties. The trap wasn't about the glamping resort. That was just the bait. The trap was about forcing Amy into a position where she has to choose between her money, her husband, and her land. This brings us to the sinister endgame, the climax of Matt Roloff's master plan that has been years in the making. We have established that the $250,000 debt is real, and we have established that the psychological torture is intentional. But now, we have uncovered the specific condition Matt has attached to his offer of forgiveness. According to exclusive details leaked from a source close to the farm's legal team, Matt invited Chris to a private meeting in the main office, the war room, as the family calls it, to discuss a settlement. Chris likely walked into that room expecting a payment plan, perhaps an extension on the loan with interest. What he got instead was a proposal so ruthless, so calculating, that it changes the entire history of the Roloff family dynamic. Matt reportedly slid a contract across the desk that had nothing to do with cash flow or construction timelines. The contract was a deed transfer and a release of liability, but not for Chris. It was for Amy. Here is the chilling reality of Matt's offer. He plans to forgive the entire $250,000 debt, wiping Chris's slate clean instantly, on one brutal condition. Amy must permanently sign away her final remaining access rights, easements, and legacy claims to the Roloff Farms property. You might be thinking, didn't Amy already sell her share? Yes, she sold her ownership stake. But what the show rarely explains is that property deals of this magnitude often come with residual rights. Easements that allow for access to the wedding barn, rights to film on certain acres, and legal stipulations regarding the future inheritance of the land for the grandchildren. These are the strings Amy kept attached to the farm to ensure she wasn't completely erased from the legacy she helped build. These legal footholds are her emotional insurance policy. They are the only things stopping Matt from having total, unchecked dominion over the land. And Matt wants them gone. This is blackmail. Matt is effectively holding Chris hostage to force Amy's hand. He is telling Chris, I will save you from financial ruin, I will save your reputation, and I will keep this embarrassing failure out of the tabloids, but only if you convince your wife to cut her final ties to this farm. It is a diabolical move because it turns Chris into the agent of Amy's dispossession. If Chris begs Amy to take the deal, he is asking her to sacrifice her history to pay for his mistake. If he refuses the deal to protect Amy's rights, he faces bankruptcy and public humiliation, which would likely destroy their marriage anyway. Matt has engineered a scenario where he wins no matter what choice they make. If they sign, he gets total control of the land. If they don't, he destroys the man Amy loves and likely breaks up her marriage, proving he is the only alpha male in the narrative. The emotional violence of the strategy is staggering. Imagine Amy's position when Chris finally comes home and breaks the news. She has to look at her husband, the man she married to escape Matt's control, and realize that he has inadvertently handed Matt the keys to her destruction. She is being asked to use her own legacy as currency to bail out Chris's failed business venture. The $250,000 isn't just money anymore. It is the price of her dignity. Sources indicate that Amy is absolutely devastated, not just by the debt, but by the realization that Matt was always 2 steps ahead. He knew the glamping project was high risk. He knew Chris was inexperienced. He let it happen because he knew it would lead to this exact moment, a moment where he could trade a bad loan for total sovereignty. We are hearing that the specific rights Matt wants to extinguish include Amy's right of first refusal on any future land sales and her access easement to the pumpkin patch for personal events. By stripping these away, Matt ensures that if he ever decides to sell the farm entirely, perhaps to a developer or an outsider, Amy would have zero legal standing to stop him or even voice an objection. It is the final erasure of Amy Roloff from Roloff Farms. It is Matt saying, "This is mine, and you are just a visitor." And he is using Chris's incompetence to sign the eviction notice. Now we arrive at the fallout and the impossible choice facing the couple. The deadline is looming. The final warning we discussed earlier wasn't just a threat of collection, it was a countdown to this ultimatum. Amy has the money in the bank to pay off the debt herself. She received a massive settlement from the divorce. She could write a check for $250,000 tomorrow and tell Matt to go to hell. But think about what that does to the marriage. If Amy pays off Chris's debt, the dynamic shifts permanently. She becomes the parent, and he becomes the child who made a mess. It creates a resentment that festers. Every time they have an argument about money in the future, that $250,000 check will be the elephant in the room. Chris would effectively be emasculated, living on his wife's bailout money, knowing he fell for Matt's trap. On the other hand, if they refuse to pay and refuse to sign the rights away, Matt unleashes the legal hounds. He forecloses, he sues, he drags them through a public court battle that will air all of their dirty laundry. The glamping failure will be headline news. Chris's professional reputation as a real estate agent will be tattered. Who hires a realtor who got conned into a bad land deal and sued by his own family? Matt knows that Chris cannot afford a public war. He is banking on Chris's fear being stronger than Amy's pride. There is also a heartbreaking element involving the kids. Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob are reportedly caught in the crossfire. If Amy signs away her rights, she creates a barrier between herself and the grandkids' experiences on the farm. She becomes a guest who needs an invitation, while Matt plays the lord of the manor. If she doesn't sign, and the family goes to war over the debt, the toxicity will ruin birthdays, holidays, and gatherings for years to come. Matt is gambling that Amy is too good of a mother, too much of a peacemaker, to let the family be torn apart by a lawsuit. He is weaponizing her kindness against her. He knows she will likely take the hit, sign the papers, and absorb the loss just to keep the peace for the children. And that is why this is the most dangerous trap he has ever set. As we wrap up this deep dive into the financial civil war consuming Roloff Farms, you have to look at the scoreboard. Matt Roloff has successfully turned a construction loan into a master key that unlocks the final door of his divorce. He has compromised Amy's new marriage, humiliated her husband, and positioned himself to seize the last remnants of her claim to the land. It is a masterclass in manipulation, a cold-blooded business maneuver disguised as family drama. The glamping resort was never real. It was a phantom project, a hole in the ground designed to bury Amy's legacy. So I have to ask you, the viewer, the ultimate question. Put yourself in Amy's shoes. You have worked your whole life to build that farm. You survived a painful divorce. You found love again. Now, your ex-husband is holding a gun to your new husband's head, demanding you sign away your rights to save him. What do? Do you use your own hard-earned settlement millions to bail out Chris's terrible mistake and keep your land rights, even if it destroys your husband's pride? Or do you sign the papers, let Matt win total control, and save your marriage from financial ruin? It is an impossible choice with no happy ending. I want to see your theories in the comments below. Is Matt a genius businessman or a heartless villain? Should Chris sell his own assets to pay Matt back? Or should Amy step in? And do you think the glamping project was a setup from day one? Drop your thoughts, argue it out in the comment section, and let's get the conversation started. Make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on, because as soon as the decision is made, whether they pay the cash or sign the rights, we will be the first channel to break the news. We are tracking the court filings in Washington County daily. You do not want to miss the update on who finally blinks in this high-stakes game of chicken. Thanks for watching, and remember, on Roloff Farms, the dirt is always deeper than it looks. We will see you in the next video.